All right, switching focus now back to our country. A judge has found Dennis Oland not guilty of second-degree murder in the 2011 case, a death of his multimillionaire father, businessman Richard Oland. Inside the courtroom, Oland's family and friends cried and hugged as the verdict was read. Now, this was a retrial for Oland, heard by a judge alone. He had been convicted by a jury in 2015, but the verdict was overturned on appeal and a new trial was ordered. For more on this, I'm joined by criminal lawyer Rob McDonald. He is in our downtown studio. Good evening, Rob, and thanks for joining us.
Yes, good evening, Akshay. Thank you for having me back on the show.
So this is a very dramatic retrial and reversal of judgment. It's a big relief, of course, for Dennis Oland and the family. But the big question still remains, who killed Richard Oland?
And, you know, that's something that we'll never learn at the end of an acquittal. All we can do at this point is see that at least one judge has found that the evidence has not amounted to proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Dennis is responsible.
But speaking about how this case has really figured in the last few months and years, Justice Morrison said that more than suspicion is required to convict a person of murder. Probable guilt is not enough. Now, this is the observation of a single-judge bench versus a jury last time that held him guilty. What do you think? Has the system really worked?
Well, I think that this has been a defense work at its best. The fact that there's been a jury trial that was a conviction, the fact that the defense fought back, won an appeal, and now has won a judge-alone trial really is a stunning victory for the defense team, absolutely.
Okay, so what does it speak about the manner in which the investigation as well as the trial was conducted? Going ahead, do you think that the public prosecutors may appeal this further?
It's certainly possible. If the prosecutors believe that there was an error in law or that the presiding justice misinterpreted the evidence, that's something that's open to them. You saw that in this case, the defense was very critical of the police approach, basically suggesting that they didn't pursue other leads, that they concentrated on one person from the beginning, and that they had this tunnel vision. Whether or not there was a judicial error in this acquittal remains to be seen. I haven't seen any evidence of that just yet myself.
You know, Rob, the other question that comes to mind is, do you believe after what has happened today, Oland will be able to lead a normal life? I mean, we've seen how for the past 8 years what has happened with this case. Now that this verdict is out, this is, of course, being not guilty. There's a difference in, you would agree, in not guilty and somebody who's completely acquitted of the entire case.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a difference in society between a verdict of not guilty and some sort of a pronouncement of innocence. I think that his lawyer, Alan Gold, did a very good job today when he spoke to the people of New Brunswick and asked them to consider this on behalf of his client and the fact that his client has been found not guilty, and he's asking the public to see him in a new light. But it's one thing that we deal with as defense lawyers so often when we're operating on a client's behalf and they are acquitted, they sort of turn to us as their lawyers and say, well, what now? And it's not always an easy transition to go from being under such public scrutiny and to be viewed in a negative or at least a curious light to then just going back and living a normal life. So it's something that, you know, it's not something that I can necessarily answer, but we'll have to see.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that. I appreciate your time. Criminal lawyer Rob McDonald, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.